Hi, this is Anil from Learning Lad and welcome to another video on the C programming video series for the beginners. In this video, we will talk about the integer constants and the suffixes that we can use with integer constants in C language. When we write the code, in our code, we will have the integer constants. For example, we may have this number 36, or we may have this number minus 47, or we may have this large number, or we may have this large number in our code. When the C compiler sees these values as part of the code, the C compiler will interpret these numbers with certain type. For example, we have integer type in C programming language. If we assume that 4 bytes of memory is used for integer types, then the value range that we can store in those 4 bytes of memory will be from this negative value to this positive value. Now, when the C compiler sees this value 36, this value 36 falls within the range of this integer number. The C compiler will interpret it as of integer type. Similarly, this number -47 falls within the range of this integer, and that's why this number -47 will be interpreted as of integer type. Now, if we have a value which is beyond this integer type, then that number may be interpreted as long integer type. If we have a number which is beyond the range of the long integer, then maybe that number is interpreted as long integer type. So the C programming language will interpret the values that we have in our program with certain types. Using the suffixes, we can tell the C compiler to interpret the values with specific type. For example, here I have this number 36. Now this 36 is interpreted as a signed integer. Now what if I want this number to be interpreted as unsigned integer? In order to do that, I can use the suffixes. Similarly, if I have a number, let us say 45, and if I want the C programming language to interpret this value as a long integer, then I can do that using the suffixes. Now, if we don't use any suffixes with the numbers, for example, as we have done here, or -45, these numbers will be treated as signed, and depending on the number, if it falls within the range of integers, the number will be interpreted as integer. If it falls in the range of long integer, then the number will be interpreted as long integer. If it falls in the range of long integer, then it will be treated as long integer. So if we don't specify anything here, it will be a signed number. If we want it to be treated as unsigned number, then we have to use this letter U as the suffix. It can be uppercase U or lowercase u. So here, this number 36 will be interpreted as unsigned integer. Similarly, if I have a number, for example, this number, if I want this number to be interpreted as unsigned, then I can use the letter U. So it will be unsigned, but if it is beyond the range of integer, then it may be interpreted as unsigned long integer or unsigned long integer. Now, if I want a number to be interpreted as long integer, then I can suffix the number with the letter L. Now here, this value will be interpreted as signed long integer. Now, if I want it to be interpreted as unsigned long integer, then I have to suffix it with UL. U for unsigned, L for long integer. Now, similarly, if I want the number to be interpreted as long integer, then I have to use this suffix LL. Here, 38LL will be interpreted as signed long integer. If I want it to be interpreted as unsigned, then I have to prefix it with ULL. Now here, with this suffix, we can use uppercase letter or lowercase letter. So here instead of the uppercase ull, it can be lowercase ull also. It will also work. Now, why we have to use these suffixes? One, clarity of code. If someone is reading your code, then they can clearly understand what type of data you are working with. Secondly, it ensures the correct type. Now, as a programmer, it's our job to write the programs without ambiguity, without confusion. We have a lot of compilers available for C programming language. And as a programmer, when we write a program, we have to make sure that it is compatible with all the compilers. For example, here, let us say we have a variable of type int, and let us say this variable is called as age, and I have this value 30. Now, if I make this variable as unsigned integer, then while specifying this value, I can use this suffix u. Here, the value of 30 will be interpreted as unsigned integer, and it is stored in a variable which is of type unsigned integer. Now, similarly, if we have a variable of type int num, and let us say we have a value of 40 here. Here, this variable num is of type integer, which can contain signed number or unsigned number. At that time, we can leave it like this. Similarly, let us say we have long int, let us say number, and we store a value of 854. Now, since this variable number is of type long integer, I want this value 854 should be interpreted as long integer. In order to do that, I can suffix that with this letter L. And similarly, if this number is unsigned long integer, then we will have ul as the suffix here. Similarly, for the long integer. For example, this variable big number is of type unsigned long, then I can specify unsigned long like this. Here, it will make sure that these values are interpreted as the programmer wants them to be interpreted. For example, if I have this number 8547, and if I try to store that in this big number variable of type unsigned long, then the C language initially will interpret it as an integer, and then it will be converted to long type. So in order to make sure that this code is compatible with all the compilers and the system architecture, I can directly specify how this value has to be interpreted. So here I will say unsigned long. So now this 8547 will be interpreted as unsigned long. Now, if I take the cursor on this value, you can see the IntelliSense is highlighting. It is treated as unsigned long. If I remove this ull here, and now if I take the cursor on here, you can see it is interpreted as integer type. So here, using this suffix will ensure that values are interpreted like the way programmer wants them to be interpreted. So here, remember, if you don't use any suffix, then the value will be treated as signed, and depending on the value, it will be assigned a type. For example, for this number 40, integer type is assigned. Again, if I take the cursor on this number 40, you can see it is interpreted as integer. If I make it a long number, something like this, you can see now it is interpreted as long. So this is it guys for this particular video. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. If you have anything to say, write that in the comment box. For more tutorials, subscribe to the channel.